Christopher Nolan's latest filmmaking spectacle, Oppenheimer, has been one of the most anticipated movies of this year by just about everyone since it was announced. There's a lot to unpack after my first viewing, so hopefully I can touch on everything I want to say. Nolan is known for his use of time and space in his stories and the way he warps it. These two concepts can really be seen twisted in abnormal ways in just about every film of his. They make you think, and that's part of the reason the audience enjoys these films so much, because the ending comes and all of the pieces start to come together in an aha moment. One of the things I was curious about with this one is how it would do that, because for the most part, it's a historical recounting of Oppenheimer's role in building the atomic bomb during World War II. It's much more realistic and grounded compared to something like Interstellar or Inception, so he could only bend the rules so much. After my first viewing, I must say that for a good portion of the movie, the jumping around from various legal hearings to the present-day construction of the bomb was confusing to me and hard to follow at times. The black and white color grading helped make that side of the legal story feel distinct, but even now I don't know if I could say what the exact order of events is in that scene. It all comes together eventually at the end, when the plot points start to tie together, but I'm interested to see how it watches on a second and third viewing, because I had a similar experience with Tenet, where I was confused out of my mind after watching it, and then as the days went by and I had time to process it, I marveled at what I had seen. The editing also made it feel abnormally rushed at certain times in the movie, where it kept cutting from one scene to the next so rapidly that I didn't have time to process it. It's a 3-hour movie, and while there weren't really any moments where it dragged on for me, the fact that there were some scenes that felt rushed is concerning given the already extensive runtime. There's a lot of story to be told here, but if I'm being honest, I don't think every part of this movie was necessary to include, at least from where I stand here. Nolan and other audience members may see a different vision than me at this point, so hopefully I can get there after watching it again. In terms of directing and the style and types of shots, I don't have too much to say other than the fact that there were an abundance of close-up shots on characters' faces. Sometimes it helped with the tension and uncomfortable feeling that was being built up, but other times it just felt too close in moments where I wanted to see the scope of the story. Ludwig Göransson's score for the movie was fantastic, and one of my favorite parts of the experience. It did so much for the emotion and tone of the movie. But while this may have just been a problem with my particular experience and not the movie as a whole, I found the bass in the score to be unusually loud, almost constantly throughout the viewing, to the point where it was difficult to hear the dialogue at certain times, which as you can expect made it hard to enjoy and understand the film. This may have just been a problem with my theater, paired with the fact that I often use subtitles anyways when watching things at home, but it is something worth noting in my review because it had a significant impact on my experience. There were times, like when the bombs were detonated, that the loud music and shaking of the room was a welcome addition, but in a softer scene between two characters, I'd like to be able to hear what they're saying, and not have to piece together the sentences with every other word. But still, I'd be shocked if there isn't an Oscar nomination for Best Score for Göransson's music here. There are also bound to be some nominations when it comes to the star-studded cast of the film. This cast has been hyped up for what feels like forever now, and while it was initially distracting to see all of these big names on screen, going from Cillian Murphy to Robert Downey Jr. to Florence Pugh to Emily Blunt to Matt Damon to a bunch of other well-known faces, I'd still rather take that than a bad acting performance. Murphy excels at giving a somber and poignant performance of a man haunted by his intellect and actions. One of my favorite things about movies like this is learning the broad strokes of historical events and people that I'm not overly familiar with, and this performance really made me feel like I understood this time in Oppenheimer's life. I'm probably going to delve deeper into how accurate everything was here, but this film has made me infinitely more interested in Oppenheimer's life, the history behind the atomic and hydrogen bomb, and multiple of the other scientific names that appeared for short times on screen, like Einstein or Heisenberg. While I don't know if I could come up with any of the other characters' names from the film, RDJ has one of his best acting performances yet in this film, despite feeling fairly limited throughout the first half. There weren't really any other characters that stood out to me, but that isn't completely bad. They all did their job in supporting roles, and lifted up both Murphy's role as Oppenheimer and the story as a whole. And lastly, a main aspect of the story was the morality of building a massive bomb that could cause hundreds of thousands of people pain and death. I really liked how big of a role that concept played in the story, especially when it comes to the scientists that were working at Los Alamos. The conflict between scientific development and research versus protecting human life and not putting a weapon of mass destruction into the hands of government they may not fully understand what it is they wield. It was a fascinating moral dilemma that went beyond the public and legal problems presented in the film. It's such an important aspect to scientific discovery, not only with the atomic bomb, but pretty much any other advancement in today's world. It may help us with our immediate problems now, but there are times when as mankind we fail to see the consequences down the line, like artificial intelligence, which is a big one right now. And the scenes where we can see Oppenheimer's guilt over what he's created, where he's seeing the blinding light, the flesh peeling off people's bones, and the burnt carcass that he steps in, it's traumatizing and captivating. I just wish we got to see more and maybe a little less over-the-top style of filmmaking. One of my favorite moments in the entire film was when some character mentioned how the atomic bomb would basically allow the United States to win the war through fear, which as someone who began initially as a Star Wars only channel, that sounded a lot like the Empire talking. Ruling, dominating, imposing one's own beliefs and agenda using fear of death and mass destruction, that isn't something that the good guys do. If there was any doubt beforehand, that scene really nailed down that this atomic bomb helped us win the war, yes, but it still can't be considered completely good or noble. This was a darker time in America and the world's history, and it held massive ramifications for the rest of time. What did you think of Oppenheimer? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more movie reviews, and remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.